It's Air France long-haul business today. Few subscribers wrote me earlier on that I'm favoring Asian carriers. I don't think I'm that biased, but this made me think and I decided to give another chance to legacy European airlines. I had a plan to fly KLM, Air France, Iberia and British Airways this year and see if they can take Asian challenge. My KLM experience was surprisingly good. Now it's time to test Air France. Let's experience together and please let me know in comments what you think about Air France business. Today's flight is Mexico City to Paris on board of Airbus A350-900. It's a classical long haul, a 9,500 kilometers, almost 11 hours flight. Most of the long hauls from Mexico City depart in the evening when air is cooler and more dense, since airport sits at 2,200 meter altitude, making it one of the highest major airports in the world. Apart from its location and size, Mexico City Benito Juarez Airport is rather unimpressive. There is no any kind of distinctive architecture, design solutions, open spaces or anything that would make it stand out. Everything is very plain and functional. Well, actually there is one. It's the most bizarre info display that I have seen. It looks like an advertising board that either as of pity to the airport or as a community service agreed to place also some flight information. Air France check-in is expectedly together with KLM, occupying a dedicated area. I'm surprised that they are not together with Air Mexico, since they are all part of the same SkyTeam alliance. Wonder if Air Mexico didn't want to share their desks or Air France KLM wanted to stand out. It's 2 hours before the flight, but the check-in is literally empty. I'm torn between two hypotheses. One is that with unpredictable traffic, people don't take chances and come well in advance. Another option, of course, is that all 300 passengers will show up 10 minutes before the check-in close, which somehow has more Latin spirit in it. Since there is even less people for priority check-in, everything is very fast and smooth. But I can't really judge efficiency of check-in, as the job was clearly simple in this instance. There is not much to explore in the airport, so I head straight to the lounge, which is not the most straightforward task. It feels like a mix between Quest and a detective movie. The airport got a whole bunch of lounges which are not linked to airlines or alliances, but go under their own names. I didn't ask for the lounge at check-in as I was expecting to find usual SkyTeam branded lounge. Now I need to navigate through a palette of lounge names. Signs are confusing, you need to take multiple turns, and then also couple spooky looking flights of stairs, all leading you away from main area and into further away corner of the airport. All this treasure hunt is somehow having an aesthetics of a scene from Narcos, like I'm going to a meeting with a secret informant. At a first glance, the lounge looks as unimpressive as the whole airport. A bit old, a bit small, a bit run down, and with no natural lighting, feels a bit like a bunker. It is divided into two areas, a kind of dining area and the further away bar area. The dining area looks basic with fairly obscure food options. The bar area is better and this is where I'm heading. At least it got a proper espresso machine and some screens with the sport broadcasts. With these two I can already get myself entertained. It's not that bad after all, even though you can't miss that all the furniture and decorations are worn out. Then I realized that something is going beyond the scene. The plates around me look much better than what was on display in the dining area. Is there an underground market for better food? Will someone come and whisper if I would like to check something better? I start my investigation and realize that there is a waiter going around and apparently taking orders. That's interesting. Quick interrogation shows that beyond what's on display, there is also an a la carte menu. That's a surprise, which they somehow made it more obvious though. Actually, you can order cook-to-order hot meals, from tacos to enchiladas to fajitas and burgers. I didn't want to spoil an appetite before the in-flight meal, but what I saw being served looked actually good. But I can't resist going for margarita to commemorate this flight, even that I know that it's rather a touristic cliché, not a real Mexican drink. In contrast to shabby decor, my margarita turns out nothing short of perfection and really generous on tequila. My Air France lounge experience ended up much better than it started, and I'm almost ready for another margarita, but it's time to board. Boarding area is extremely small and crowded, but at least the sky priority lane is observed. There is no, however, separate air bridge for the business class, and the plane is boarded through only one door. So I get into little traffic jam, but my margarita helps me to take it easy. Walking through that bridge, I try to draw a mental line between airport experience and what I will have on board to make sure that I'm not biased about the flight itself. You can't really blame the airline for the airport. Bonjour, Air France. This business class cabin has a one-to-one reverse herringbone layout with direct aisle access for all the seats. Window seats come staggered, one slightly closer to the window and another to the aisle. I am at 4L by the window, the one with the better privacy from my perspective. The seat Air France is using on this A350 is Saffron Opera. It's 2016 model, which was best in class at the time and still a very good seat in 2025. The trick is that Air France installed them on A350s since 2016, but as of 23 switched to upgraded version, Stelia Opera. My A350 was delivered in 2022 and still got an older version, which is still good, but it bothers to know that Air France has better one on the same plane type. This model doesn't have sliding doors yet, but rather this small additional separator that could be manually pushed out. The seat is only old by model. The plane is less than 3 years old, so everything is in a very good shape. It's spacious and gives a very generous leg space, even in an upright position. All the materials feel very solid, but maybe not necessarily luxury. Let's keep exploring. Here is an interesting feature of this seat. The small flaps are actually foldable armrests, which is a very smart move. It adds comfort when sitting, but gives you more space when in lie-flat position. The pre-flight service starts with wet towels and departure drink. There is no space for doubt when on Air France. Go for champagne. It's fresh and crisp, but serving it in the same glass they would serve Coke is not giving the full justice to this noble drink. Controls. The setup is extremely minimalistic and simple, which from my perspective is actually very good. I never used all those multiple seat controls, massage functions, etc. The more simple, the better. The personal storage unit seems to be quite spacious. There is already a bottle of Evian water there and headphones. I will check those headphones later, but from a first glance it seems like a no-name OEM model. The remote for in-flight entertainment system matches the simplistic style of the controls, but here I'm less excited, as there is no mini screen on it, which is very convenient to track the flight while watching movies or when the main screen is switched off at night. Finally, right beneath the storage unit we got universal power supply and a USB port, very conveniently located but unfortunately missing a Type-C, which reminds that the seat goes back to 2016. That's it for the seat, and I'm ready to switch my attention to amenities, when I notice something which is really disappointing. The interior is not cleaned properly. There are some kind of drip marks on the cabin wall, like something was splashed there and never cleaned. This is not something you would expect from any business cabin, especially for someone as style-focused as Air France. Back to amenities. Slippers and a coat hanger were waiting for me on the seat. That coat hanger is especially nice touch, which tells how serious is French airline about your clothes. They don't want you to wrinkle your nice jacket or coat. There is also a good size pillow in the color of the seat, looks nice and comfortable, but the material feels a bit cheap and synthetic. I'm anxious to take a look at the amenity bag, but I notice that at the front of the cabin the crew is starting taking pre-order for the dinner, so need to refocus on the menu. I'm ready for many compromises on this flight, but if there is one thing that Air France got to deliver, it's the food. Air France is known for cooperation with different Michelin chefs, creating menu for specific routes, but it doesn't seem to be universal. Air France named chefs creating menus for departures from US, Canada and Caribbean, but not for Mexico, so likely no Michelin cuisine tonight. The menu promises a 4-course dinner, an appetizer, beef tartare for starter, there is no choices here, 4 choices for the main course, beef, chicken, shrimps or risotto, then selection of cheeses, opera cake or fruit platter for dessert. There is also a snack buffet which will be available in the galley between the meals. And finally, tomorrow morning we will have a continental breakfast with a choice of crabs with scrambled eggs or cold cuts and cheese platter. I am equally expecting a good wine tasting ahead of me. Wine list goes on about a Michelin sommelier who put together the wine list and a bit fluffy story about selecting the most prestigious wines and the best of the best that France can offer. I'm always skeptical about those best of the best stories, but for sure it keeps building up the expectations. Reality versus promise. This is good value wine list, but there is nothing to write home about. The champagne is Pommery Brut Royal, an entry-level brut often used by airlines and hotels. You can find it in the stores at 35 to 40 euros. Same for wines, they range 10-15 euros. A better one from my point of view is Chablis Le Chanoine, a solid AOC Chablis sitting in between Petit Chablis and Grand Cru. Beyond that, there is also a couple of French beers, which makes a lot of sense, a French whiskey, which totally doesn't make any sense, cognac and armagnac, and a standard selection of soft drinks, teas and coffees. No big surprises here, all good. It's late, so I decide to be on a light side and choose shrimps. With that done, as a rule-fearing passenger, I dedicate myself fully to safety video. I like comparing how airlines try to differentiate themselves through this otherwise very boring thing. Air France video takes place somewhere in the middle of my ranking. It's not necessarily very creative, but definitely stylish and unmistakably French. We are taxiing very slowly, often stopping. Mexico Airport is prone to congestion as its two runways are too close to each other and can't be used simultaneously. So during peak hours, queues are common, and I understand that I still have time to check the in-flight entertainment system before we take off. The in-flight system comes with 18.5-inch touchscreen. It's a nice, bright and responsive screen, but not necessarily best in class these days. Newer cabins have 20-inch screens already as standard, and brand new Cathay Aria suites have massive 24-inch screens. Check out my review of this amazing product coming in October. But back to Air France. There is a huge choice of entertainment content on par with what you could get in Emirates or Qatar, but what you can't miss though is that there is a large share of French content, which probably could be a little bit less known and a little bit less of interest for international travelers. It's clear why, and it's known how France is protective about own cinema and TV, but given the importance of transit traffic, they could probably be a bit more pragmatic. There is a reason why, for example, Emirates doesn't have half of its entertainment taken by Arabic content. I'm moving to the maps. I strangely like to track the flight and check all the stats when flying, so this functionality is always my soft spot. But I really struggle to explore it as well as keep the camera steady. Plane is heavily shaking and jumping up and down. It feels a bit like a bus on a countryside road. But it's not a turbulence, we are still on the ground. It's a bumpy tarmac of Mexico City Airport, probably the bumpiest taxiway that I have experienced in a major airport. At some point, I almost dropped the phone. We are through our long bumpy ride through Benito Juarez. The weather in Mexico City was good, so I hope that at least the takeoff will be smooth and I could take better shots. The view of the night Mexico City is really mesmerizing. The city of 20 million people is seen from above as an endless sea of the lights. When you land during the daytime, you could see some not the best looking neighborhoods close to the airport, but the night hides all imperfections and makes the city bright and shiny. It may feel like you look at a city surrounded by hills, but make no mistakes. It's a high-altitude plateau surrounded by active volcanoes and mountain peaks, with the height of 5,000 meters and above. I'm enjoying the view while the plane is still relatively low, while also quietly hoping that we are going to climb faster and reach a higher altitude, as all those mountains around make me feel a little stressed. I finally making a sign of relief when the lights are switched on, as it means we are high enough in the skies. There are still two important things on my checklist: headphones and amenity bag. As I expected, headphones are no-name private label. It's decent and noise cancelling was actually working well, but sound and fit to ears could be better. You start feeling discomfort after already an hour. They are kind of semi-permanently plugged, so I don't need to worry about looking for a port, which is often in most inconvenient places of the seat. The amenities bag is small but looks nice and stylish from the outside. It's Air France branded, which is a small bell. In my experience, amenities bags dedicated to specific cosmetic brands turn out to be more luxury. Indeed, stylish on the outside turns out to be rather unimpressive on the inside. A pair of socks and a standard sleeping mask take most of the space, and then I start to fish inside, trying to see if there is anything else there. We still get a toothbrush and a small tube of toothpaste, and 2 tubes with a cream and a balm. Actually, the offering is interesting, but somehow it doesn't look too impressive in that bag. It's so small that you get an impression that all you got is socks and mask, which is a pity as Air France gives interesting product. The toothpaste is from a French niche premium brand Boucaterne, which is built around thermal water from spa that goes back to Roman times. The 2 creams are from a high-end Clarins or Clarin in French, which is as good as it gets if it wasn't so small. They probably could have found a better way to arrange and present all that, possibly adding something more. With not so bad content, the bag looks a bit empty. It seems to be a spiritual brother of ascetic amenity bag from KLM Flight, which I reviewed earlier this year. I marked the last thing on my mental cabin checklist perfectly in time with the start of the dinner service. As I mentioned before, I can cut Air France some slack on many things, but food is something where expectations are flying high. First comes amuse-bouche, an appetizer. It's a camembert bowl with pistachios and apricot jam. Looks good, tastes even better. It's followed by a starter of beef tartare, curd cheese, parsley pesto and green apple puree. There is a small green salad on the side and bread and butter. Everything looks stylish and again unmistakably French. The tartare keeps the taste pace set by appetizer. So far so good. If this would be football game, we would be 2-0 after 30 minutes. A great start, but with still a lot of game to cover. And the main course is for sure a make it or break it element for this culinary game. Sauteed shrimps with curry sauce, pumpkin puree, roasted zucchinis and red onions. But instead of being the climax of the dinner and a triumph of this game, shrimps actually torpedo the whole experience. It's very ordinary shrimps, not bad, but a bit firm, a bit dry and a bit stale. Maybe it was a mistake to go outside of French cuisine, and should I pick something like beef tournedos, then I would have a proper experience. In any case, this is all the guesswork, but instead of triumphant win, this football game that started so well ends up in Team Air France ceding 2 unexpected goals and finishing with a draw. It's not a loss, but no one celebrates either. This is my feeling after the meal. On that thought, I decide to skip the dessert and finish with a French note, with a cheese plate, which turns out to be excellent and helps me to forget the mediocre shrimp experience. Still not a win overall, but it's like cheerleaders ran to the field after the game and sweetened the pill. Now it's a proper time to sleep. There is no mini mattress, which is a pity, just a standard blanket, which is in the same camp as pillow. It's decent, but with a bit of synthetic touch of the fabric. Something more natural would be better. I'm waking up from a daylight coming into the cabin and an enticing smell of the breakfast. We are in Europe already, and it's afternoon at the local time. It was good 7 hours of sleep, and I need to give the credit to the seat. It was very good in the lie-flat position, even without a mattress. Also with very decent space in the footwell, a typical problem of reverse herringbone sitting. I'm gearing up for my breakfast and I need to give another credit to this Air France Opera seat, something that I didn't pay attention earlier somehow. The folding table is extremely versatile and gives you a lot of options how to use it and a lot of space. Sometimes you're really pressed hard by those tables, but here it's all good. It's a small thing that actually makes a lot of difference. Now I'm all ready for what I expect to be my Parisian breakfast. It's a typical continental breakfast, and I'm not sure where this would land on the scale of Frenchness. It doesn't look as sophisticated or one may say pretentious as the dinner, but I strangely like its simplicity. It's fit for purpose. I get few slices of ham and cheese, simple but fresh, a brioche with jam and butter, and a plain yogurt. All this I can splash with fresh orange juice and a cup of tea. This will not win any Michelin stars, but it all tastes well, and this is what counts. Can't be all about the looks. Except for the tea actually, which seems like they used one tea bag for the whole plane. It's clear that tea is not Air France cup of tea. Last check, lavatories. It's a torture test since we're in the air for 9 hours already. There is nothing special about it, it's a standard issue, no variations for business class, either in size or design. But it's impressively clean given the 10 hours of flight behind us, so full credits to the crew. There are the same Clarins product as an amenity kit, and one is actually interesting. It's a treatment water, a kind of mix between skincare products and a perfume. There is less than an hour left till landing. I'm staring at the flight map, wondering if indeed we flew almost a straight line or the system just didn't bother to show the exact route. It's not often that flight would go through the open ocean rather than along the North American coast and Greenland. We are now cruising somewhere over Biscay Bay with a picturesque view of long and wide sand beaches below us, which at least from this angle look like they could rival Mexican beaches. Or maybe we turn back and now overflying Tulum and Playa del Carmen. So, was it a hit or a miss? Being kind of fan of Asian carriers, I was a bit biased about the ability of European airlines to match them these days, but my experience with KLM World Business Class recently was very good, so the bar was raised. And then flying Air France, you can't help but think about style, luxury and fine food. All that has set a higher bar for the Air France, the airline which had its ups and downs in their recent history. Like many other legacy European carriers, Air France has been stagnating around the turn of the century, pressured on short-haul routes by discounters, while not being able to catch up in long-haul with the rising new wave of competition like Qatar and Emirates. With too much focus on cost saving, they neither could match discounters but also lost their edge with the experience. But then finally in the last decade they tried to make an effort with the focus on fleet modernization and better service. Air France still remains to be a major international airline with 227 planes with a respectable average age of just 12 years. More than half of that fleet are the long-haul wide-bodies, showing that Air France kept its global transit status. With 42 million passengers carried in 2024, they would be closing the world's top 20, a very respectable position given the rise of discounters and Chinese airlines in the last decades. All in all, a decent job to stay in the Premier League. What about then my flight? For sure it was not a miss, but was it a hit? It was a very solid experience and I would not hesitate to fly again with Air France long-haul business, but I would not be able to call it best in class. Part of that could be that high bar of luxury and style that is associated with France and that Air France is happy to advertise, but it's a little bit easier said than done. I'm not giving too much weight to the on-the-ground experience in Mexico City, as not much could have been done by the airline. They probably got the best they could given the fairly run-down airport there. The Safran Opera seat in business is all-rounded and very solid, but it's not the best product that Air France got in business. It does its job very well, but it's missing exactly those little elements of luxury in design and materials that make one product stand out from another in today's competitive business air travel. It's like driving a standard trim Mercedes where everything seems to be good and in its place, and then switching to Maserati and understanding that luxury and style has a different dimension. Same would go into smaller things like pillows, blankets, amenity box, headphones. There is nothing wrong, but there is a stamp of cost efficiency over them, while somehow you would expect Air France better than anyone else understand the importance of small details. It's almost like they need to rewatch Emily in Paris, where a director of Savoir was telling, "You Americans don't understand the luxury," except that Air France is actually French and they should know better. Food experience was a little bit mixed too. Starter and appetizer were excellent, but I found main course to be a little bit bland. And while Air France likes to talk about its special wine list, it turned out to be on the same good value rather than best-in-class side. Pleasant to enjoy, but nothing to write home about. All in all, I would give them 4 out of 5. It's a very solid product, but it's a notch below what would be best in class today, and what you would expect from someone who claims style and luxury as part of their DNA. It felt like a ride in a very comfortable family car. Nothing to complain, but it's not something that you will keep in your memory to savor some special moments later. I still would like to try one of the new A350 with Stelia Opera suites. This might be something to take Air France to the new level. Meanwhile, well done, but there is still job to do if you want to be at the top. Bonjour Paris Charles de Gaulle and au revoir Air France.